Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the TAF podcast. We are discussing why so many small businesses are still hesitant about AI and other fluff such as that. I am Joe Wallace.
But I'm Sean Odmishi, and it's a mind block. It's a mental block. It's one person told me I don't want to touch it because it's just too hard. No, it's not. We can help you with that.
If anything, it kind of makes things a little easier. I mean, sure, I guess you're trying to understand all the concepts of it. It's tough, but all I know is, Sean, all I know is I was a simple use case for me yesterday was, man, how I, by the way, I was trying to figure out how to make uh, some soda, just like using my soda, not stream. I don't have a soda stream, but like something similar to it, right? Where it injects carbonated water, carbonation into water and whatever. And so I was trying to figure out how to make some simple soda at home. I was like, I just want to see. I had some, and then the wife and I had this brilliant idea where we're going to take syrup, like simple pancake syrup, right? Maple syrup, whatever,
Yeah.
and combine with water and carbonate. And wouldn't that be the same as soda? And sure, it turns out it is. So I found a recipe online. It gave me the ratio, and I was like, cool. We're going to make some soda out of this maple syrup. But what it didn't give me, Sean, was my exact bottle management. But you know what did give me the exact bottle measurement? When I went into AI, and I think it was Gemini at this point, and I just said, look, great. Here's the ratio. I got a 28-ounce bottle. Go. I didn't have to think. It just did it for me. It said, no problem. 7 ounces of this, and the rest is water. Like, great. So I
So I
did.
guess so the moral of the story is we don't have to think anymore, Joe. That's exactly.
Well,
No. I get you, man.
yeah. It's just I needed to fast. Cause I had
Right.
other things to do. It
Right.
simplified it for me to the point where
Right.
I was able to get something done. And I think AI as the tool. I mean, it's just like we use a hammer to hammer a nail in. We don't use a
Right.
fist anymore to do that because it hurts.
And I think that leads to the theme of some of the articles we're going to talk about is you were
Yeah.
able to gain.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
No, sure. And again, like before, the first article I think we want to touch on that really helps set the stage and really talk about what our title is going off on is uh, how kind of most small businesses are really just kind of testing AI. They're not really, you know, they're not really doing implementing it. They're still working on testing it. So let me share that real quick here inside because it usually is helpful to do just that. Yeah, we'll roll with that and we'll share that here. Oh,
Got it. It's a good article, by the way.
yeah, and I found it really interesting that like only 51% of modest-sized companies are still tentative about using AI to automate work tasks. And I have to ask myself, Sean, modest-sized businesses. I don't know if they're talking about small businesses or medium at that point. I would say medium.
Well,
No, that's
I
too
guess it
small.
depends on the individual that's actually writing the article to really look into the definition of how they're using it.
Looks like it says they mentioned small, so I stand corrected. I think that's
Well, well,
interesting idea.
not very large, but once again, how do you define not very large? I think, and that's why I want to get to the point is, even with this article and saying not very large, I mean, most people when we talk to that are dealing with $2-3 million a year, they're actually very small in size. Like for
Yeah.
example, you may have between 2 to 3 employees that are making 2-3 million a year. So once again, how do you define that? So um, I'm gonna be honest with you, Joe. I think at the end of the day, the adoption process in any tool, regardless of it being artificial intelligence or anything else, has always been an emotional struggle. It's a
Yeah.
um, personal role that goes into it. You have those that are very conservative when it comes down to the adoption process, and you have some of those, kind of like you and I, where we're all about trying it out, tinkering with it, and seeing how it goes. Same goes with the consoles. Same thing goes with new hardware. Same thing goes with a lot of variety of things, right? I don't. Were you
Absolutely.
the type that jumped on the bandwagon whenever um, like when Windows new operating systems came out? Did you tinker with them or no?
Yeah, it just depended on the situation. I mean, I think when Windows 7 came out, it was out for so long that when Windows 8 popped up, I was all about it. I jumped on it as soon as I could, and especially when I love the ideology as well. Like uh, the thought that a single OS could be across every single device asset you have just meant to me that it all communicated together. And true enough, you know, well, unfortunately, I believe Windows 7 Phone came out prior to that, and then Windows 8 came out. And while there was, I think the tablets and the OS itself were great and everything, but there were like freaking ARM versions that were totally different from the Windows 8 OS in terms of like communication and just core functions. It didn't pan out the way I wanted to do, and that's my problem. I think with the theory behind, like, the theory was great. I thought it was great, and that's why I jumped on it. But when I actually got in and was playing with it, it just didn't do what I thought it was going to do.
So there's two types of people when it comes to the adoption process, or at least in this case. For those of you that use guest operating systems or virtual machines, a lot of times people would download the operating system, run it as a virtual machine just to get a feel for it. But then there's some people like me, Joe, that just YOLO it and they make that as their main primary operating system, and they're willing to risk everything on there. So what I did is I always had a backup copy of everything, and I always had that available. So in case the OS crashed, I could quickly jump back. But yeah, it was kind of dangerous those days.
Well, I
I
mean,
can't do that now. I can't do that now, like,
no.
for sure.
Well, like with Windows 11, I very much was hesitant to go into that just because Windows 10 was just so good. It really is, and it still is. Actually, I see very little difference between this stylistically, the
Yeah.
difference between 10 and 11. Under the hood, though, it's totally different. It's totally different.
Well, I remember whenever 8 introduced those panels, the panels that came out, the boxes. I remember, old school Windows Classic mode.
Yeah.
That's where my heart will always stay. And when I saw all those little boxes, it drove me nuts. Still today, I still prefer the classic menu. Start, programs.
Well, yeah. Well, I think having the marriage between the two of them is great, and I think 8 ended up turning into that eventually. At first, I remember when the 8 first came out, they tried to make it like you push the Windows button and the whole screen goes like to a different thing. And then I remember 2 updates in, they brought the start function back because people were just curious about it. It's just like with 11, Sean, when in 11 they put the start menu in the middle, and everybody was like, "What are you doing?" Of course, now it's built in. You can change it to go back to the left where start menu belongs.
You,
But
you see how we derailed the entire artificial intelligence topic? It went to
yes,
SOTA, then it went directly to Windows operating
right.
systems. So we're going to tie it back in with Microsoft Copilot, Windows version. Anyways, welcome to our podcast where we
All I know is
debunk dysfunction.
look. All I know is my Microsoft Copilot is always updating in my
Yeah.
app,
Yeah.
my Windows app store or whatever, and I still never use it. That's what's funny. Like it just sits there in the corner, and I don't use it at all.
I think at some point, I think they need to add some some emotions directly to the app whenever it's not being used. So whenever it just sits there in the corner and it says, "Hey, I'm here," I like chop liver. Can you
You're not.
imagine your AI software telling you that? It's like, "Hey, I know you're asking these questions, but I'm right here. I'm here."
See that you're just giving off Clippy energy at this point. Like just like, oh, hey, I see you're writing a document. Hey,
Well,
hey.
I like Clippy, but I preferred Merlin. Okay, the wizard was always my friend. Okay.
Yeah, he's just creepy. Well, they all were, honestly, but not
So
as creepy as the fact that SMBs are going to be able to really shine coming up, guys. Remember we were talking about in all of our podcasts and workshops, guys, how small businesses are really being helped by AI tools to compete on a larger scale. Well, look at the validation I just got, right? And it's great because it's true. You got larger competitors. Guess what? You're going to be able to compete directly with them now instead of them just overtaking you and cutting you out of the space. Is that right, Sean?
Yeah, and that's a huge point. I think it goes back to our discussion about leveling the playing field, right? Where if you're a small business owner, how do you compete with the big ones? And these tools are going to be able to help you. And I think it goes back to the adoption piece
Yeah.
and really the added value. And I think, I mean, when we send some of these meetings that we attend and we work with like insurance agencies, we work with realtors, we work with brokers, we work with a variety of different companies, and listening to them on their adoption process and really how they go after it, it's interesting. Some are really into it. Some are like, I don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. But I think slowly, as people become more educated and the awareness component goes deeper,
Yeah.
it's going to help out with that as well.
Well, and I think that a lot of people are mistaken in the idea that they have to complete, like when it comes to AI, it almost feels like they need what they're thinking they need to do is completely reinvent their entire tech stack to include AI or to be AI, right? And I think that's strange, actually, a very strange thing to go with. Uh, I would say you already are using things, that can be benefit from an AI like option or influence on it, like emails, CRM, stuff like that, can benefit from AI being introduced and helping with repetitive tasks and all that kind of stuff. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it's more like you're embedding AI in everyday tools instead of just, oh, I'm going to reinvent my whole tech stack.
Well, the problem is the tools keep changing, Joe.
That's true.
They keep changing, constantly changing. I mean, the tools that we're using, we know in quarter one they're going to change again. And you and I were having this discussion yesterday. Like, we have to update the website again.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
yay.
absolutely. Absolutely. And hey, look, I'm all about, keeping things fresh and current, but it is
Yeah.
frustrating to have to constantly do that. And I understand. But it's just like I would say with in the world of like gaming or anything else that you do, uh, you pick something and an environment in this case, and you try to stick with it if you can. And eventually something else is going to come out that's better. Look, you know, your Nintendo is going to become a Super Nintendo, and you can stick with the Nintendo if you want to, but guess what? No one's going to be making shit for it anymore, right? And it's not going to be the most current thing, the most interesting thing, and you're going to want to move over. But until then, yeah, sure, Sega came out with something, and you see what I'm doing. The point is it doesn't have to be.
Well, look, you brought up Nintendo, so I'm just going to go ahead and leave this for all of y'all. So, for the Macy's Day Parade for Thanksgiving, the 40th anniversary of Super Mario Bros., they're getting a new float, Joe. They're getting a new balloon. It's going to be Mario. Mario will be in the Macy's Day Parade. Just thought I'd leave that out there.
Wasn't Sonic already in it? I think he was.
I don't know. Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know. But that's going to be the new balloon. Is going to be Nintendo of America's Super Mario Brothers. Woohoo!
Well, I mean, that's honestly, that's all they have to lean on is nostalgia. So, sorry.
Well, and all of us that sat there and grew up with it. So we weren't raised by our parents. We were raised by Nintendo.
That's true. Well, yeah,
you don't
right.
hear that. It depends on the house. It could have been Sega.
Yeah.
I had
Well,
both.
I think some, I had a couple friends who were all about the Sega and everything. But it's
Right.
good. But I think at the end of the day, we're looking at some interesting things. So before we get in to, I think one of the more interesting and not so happy articles, I want to get into the next one that I think is interesting. It just goes to show that things are really starting to take heed, and that Sean and I, who haven't really talked about this on the podcast yet, and we may talk about it today. I'll see how Sean feels about it, because I haven't. I'm not gonna. I haven't deigned to talk about it yet. But there's new funding now, support coming from the U.S. business growth. This is something the government recently talked about earlier this month. And what's interesting is that they're doing something called a new Make AI Work for You course. It's a short course from Google. And while we have looked slightly into it, not too much, but we understand the idea of it, it is still, of course, just a generic, this is what you can do, maybe try this and that and the third. But it's an official course that's being put on by Google. And of course, what I find interesting is that they're putting money behind it. And I don't know if it's proposed money or if it's actual money.
I haven't really looked into where the actual funding is coming from, but I think what's important is regardless if you are adopting the tool or not, that you do have some foundational knowledge on how artificial intelligence works and how it can benefit your industry.
But it does take us to a link, of course, of AI Opportunity Fund, which was put together last year in April. And I want to point out that this is a constant thing that people are trying to push. I think it's worthwhile, guys, to remember that this really kind of helps solidify that it's not just a fad like some people have been talking about, even in a very public way. It is definitively something that is you're going to need to learn how to use, and it starts with these campaigns to really push the knowledge of it, and of course the awareness out that is coming. And that's one of the things that I would love to talk about as well in a small way, is that Sean and I are very keen on whether and on this tack and making the awareness more clear about not just the generic ideas of what AI is all about, but driving in a little deeper into it, which is why we do the workshops that we do, and it's why we're starting to work with institutions as well to help bring a lot more clear understanding of what AI is.
Yeah, so I won't go too deep into it, but starting the middle of November and starting especially in the spring, we'll be working with a college here in the Gulf Coast region where we're putting together a series of AI courses, really to focus not only on the essentials of artificial intelligence, but to really help small business owners and especially in that area to really get people growing. So the movement, the passion that you're seeing from the states, our local representatives, and of course now what we're doing, it just all works together. But you know what this reminds me of, Joe? Whenever I was working for an institution for over a decade, we had partnered with. I'll just say this: they're worth $4 trillion now. You can Google it and you'll figure out who they are. Okay, but they had a campaign which was called "Everyone Can Code." Everyone can code. It was all about, STEM and programming and how kids can learn how to code. You know what's happening again? Everyone can AI, Joe.
Yeah.
That's really where it is, and it's interesting how within literally less than a decade, how the shift is, where it's gone from everyone can code to really everyone can AI, and how a prompt can certainly shift the everyone can code piece now. It's really neat.
Yeah.
It's really neat.
Well, I just feel like everything is with tech. What's tech makes things it's just faster. That's all it does. So by proxy, of course, it makes itself faster. It iterates faster. So that's why when you see people who didn't bother to learn how to use a computer back in the day, uh, they're left scratching their heads now. We're so far past the simple operation of a computer that if they're how do I use the AI? I mean, they may have learned their phones, right? But they don't know how to use a computer. So now it's like, well, you're gonna have to start way back here.
Right.
Good luck catching up. So that's why and obviously we know every newfangled thing that comes out, you don't have to learn right away. We're not saying that because sometimes even the things that come out fresh, they change. Okay. It's just like the first versions of ChatGPT that came out. Hey, it was in a test environment. It was stuck within not knowing something after a certain time period. Yeah, you're probably fine missing that first iteration. But as soon as it became more of a mainstay, guys, it was important for you to jump in on it and just at least learn the basics. You don't have to use it every day. It's just like Microsoft Copilot. Your AI is now ingrained in your OS,
Right.
whether you like it or not.
Right.
And me personally, I don't like it because I like to compartmentalize a little more. I don't I don't need it to be in the background doing things for me that I don't know about, right? So and it's not because I fortunately was able to turn most of it off. But that's my point. It's like
Right.
I would not know that, Sean. I would
Mhm.
not know it was doing things if I didn't understand some basic things about AI.
Well, I'm gonna shift it a little and talk about it's really now. Let's just assume that people have basic standard skills of how to use a computer.
Of
With
course.
artificial intelligence now, it's a matter of shifting the mindset. Really should being able to shift the mindset and start thinking as the tool and how to be creative utilizing the tool. I think a lot of people are forgetting that the whole goal um, that small business should take when using these tools is the human and AI collaboration method, where you're using the tool to help you. You said it. You said it best a while ago with the soda piece. I got this idea. I want to do X with the soda, and I need help, and I need you to do this piece so I can continue moving in the direction that I need to move, which in this case was saving time, quickly doing the calculations, and getting
In
to
the
the result
momentum,
in the
yeah, the
momentum.
momentum that I
Correct.
was at. Yeah.
And because of that, it was a complete win. So you and your wife were able to enjoy a tasty beverage just because you were able to move it quicker. Now, if you didn't have that, how you would have probably thrown that shit out the trash and called it a day.
I would have probably just stopped doing it, like
Right.
stopped even trying to do it because, I didn't have time to do it. So I would have
Right.
set it aside
Right.
and I would probably never have gotten to it. Right. But because I did, it was like,
Yep.
oh, great.
So
It's
you
done.
achieved. So you
And
achieved your
now I know,
milestone.
and then what's more important is
Yep.
now with that instance, that bottle, right, that I was with its ounces and everything, I don't have to look at AI again. I just know now.
Right. And I think that that's important is understanding how we can utilize the tool to be able to get things done in a more effective, more efficient manner. But the wins, can we just talk about the wins? I mean, that was a huge success. I mean, so what was the end result whenever you and Ebony, drank it? Was it
Oh,
was
it's
it
delicious.
it was
Yeah.
see, so that's
Now,
it.
now, 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 is it better than other things? What I can tell you is this: we took a simple concept and now we're going to expand on it. Right? Hey, I took some syrup, maple syrup, carbonated it for those that missed it, and with water, whatever the ratio was it needed to be. AI helped with that for the bottle I was trying to do it in. And then what's going to come next, John? Is we're probably going to end up trying different flavors. We're going to try using some things like, I don't know, root beer essence. Who knows? The fact is, you can put vanilla in it. You can do all kinds of stuff now that I understand a simple ratio. So it's stuff like that um, AI can help with as well, right? And again, it's not to replace your thinking. I think that's the core thing I want to point out. It's to help accentuate what you're trying to do. Like
Right.
for instance, and not to go too deep into it, but you talked about coding earlier, and I
Yeah.
think what's great about that is I have never been a coder. I understand the concepts of coding. I understand if-then statements and all those other things. I just don't know. I don't have the knowledge of memory of like all these different things I need to know, say for Java, C plus sharp, whatever, right? Um, now, because I mean, I've always been creative. So the thing is that I focus on the creative pursuits. And one of the things that was interesting to me was like, well, recently I was trying to figure out how to make something more easy for me to use on the ChatGPT side. Just do some simple summarization of by pulling some data from some of our client stuff from, say, Birdeye and whatnot, and using the Bird API to do that. And ChatGPT could not look directly at it. So I was like, well, how are we going to fix this? And then I thought, well, maybe if we use WordPress or something, some application, right? And it develops. I used a different AI model, but I used Claude for this, and it was able to develop me a plugin for WordPress that would
Yeah.
do what I needed it to do. And I it showed me all the code it was doing. I was keeping track of it, but the thing is like I couldn't see anything. what was going on. So,
Right.
um, yeah, it was wild, you know, and I was able to iterate on it. It gave me different versions. Point is I was able to create something that I would never be able to create in the time period that we're talking about. I would have to spend probably years learning the ins and outs of WordPress,
Yep.
uh, of Java, uh, Lord, uh, whatever the API calls were, all these other things. I would have to learn all this stuff. It would take me months to years to really come up to speed, to feel comfortable, just write everything out. And it helped me do that. Now, would I still want a coder to review what it is that I'm doing for a ship product? Probably.
Right.
But um, if I have a starting point, it is so much easier for people to be able to understand something and not reverse engineer it. Just like, hey, can you clean this up? Is this going to work properly? Is there a better way to do it? And I would imagine it's probably a little easier to start with that than start from scratch.
Well, I can tell you right now, just going back to what you said, is taking a concept that you're a subject matter expert in this particular field and not in this case programming languages, right? And quickly having the tool take your concept, create a widget using a specific coding language, make it's functional and it works to get you going
Yeah.
is incredible. But I think you hit on something where I think a lot of people need to understand is just because you have something, there's a lot of different areas that need to be discussed, which are the vulnerabilities with it, proper best practices for the actual coding, and go along detail. But the great thing is, Joe, is if someone had told you that, okay, if you really want to take your product and you want to make it where, okay, it's a legitimate, good product to utilize, move forward with that, you can ask ChatGPT to put together documentation for a developer, for them to take a look at the notes and so forth, export that out, give it to them, and now that saves the developer time too. So it's just incredible with that, which kind of leads into the couple of articles that I shared, which talk about the security exploits. But before we go down the negative Nancy or rabbit hole on the security issues, I want to talk about the new browser that just came out through OpenAI. Are you familiar with it, Joe?
No, I'm not, Sean.
So it's called ChatGPT Atlas, and so think of it as the fight for the browser. Before it was Firefox and Chrome and so forth, but now you have ChatGPT Atlas. So it is a new browser. It's been developed by OpenAPI. Right now, unfortunately, it's available for Mac OS, and it's going to come out for Windows as well, and eventually iOS and Android. So it's going to be interesting how this takes place. But the goal is between having to constantly flip from your regular browser to ChatGPT, the browser actually integrates itself with AI. So imagine having your browser and ChatGPT all in one together, where you're able to continue doing what you do best, which is scrolling and searching through the internet, but also you have the ability of the functionality of ChatGPT, which is going to be kind of like it's a sidebar, and then it has memories, which essentially gives it the ability to store, remember, and help you with what you're doing. I'll give you a basic example. How many times, Joe, I've had this happen to me many times, where you're searching on the web and all of a sudden you want to reference back to a particular website that you saw maybe 2 weeks ago, but you just didn't save in your favorites. It's happened to me before. Happened to you?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Well, with that, you can just tell the browser, say, hey, I was looking at this particular thing for recipes, last week. Could you search through my history to find that for me? Well, it's going to do that for you. So it's going to be able to help you with things like that as well. So it takes your whole browser experience to the next level, which is really interesting. So it's going to be able to do that. And of course, it's going to be utilizing the agent mode for the paid, for the pro and plus users, where it can take actions on behalf of you. So, opening tabs, filling out forms, doing multitasks, and so forth. There's still some privacy and data controls in there for incognito mode and so forth. But this is where it becomes kind of scary. Okay. With everything, you got to keep this in mind. One, there is a new risk surface because now it's integrating deeply with inside the memory and it's using agentic actions. It becomes a new type of endpoint where there needs to be security oversight, especially for these devices that are going to have to be secure. Most important piece, Joe, is going to be educating people and explaining to them how the browser works, how emails work, and how their entire network infrastructure works. So let me give you an example of some of the issues that have come up. They've done some tests where they're able to write some malicious code. You click on it, and then from there, it's able to use the browser and its memory to be able to pull directly your Google Calendar and your emails from this malicious code. So it's able to take advantage. It creates kind of a backdoor essentially for people to be able to get in and start using malicious code to get access to sensitive information. So once again, you're putting a new lock on your front door. It's got a key. Some people are able to access it. So these are the issues. And the biggest growing concern right now is they're saying that OpenAI is not addressing these concerns. And that's really where it's at. So for those of you that are using this new browser, you need to be very mindful of what exactly you're utilizing it for and be mindful of really just reviewing what you're putting into that, what you're clicking on and so forth. Because not everything is being checked out. So even though you're using the browser and hopefully it's secure, it is not the same level of security as, for example, Google Chrome is. So keep that in mind.
I think it's really concerning to me to hear that it's well, one, I mean, the memory thing is just, it's just I can only imagine. The exploit itself is just it sounds truly.
Yeah, if you
Pretty
scroll
fascinating.
down, you can actually take a look at. I'm not going to go into detail in really, but
Right.
really the goal of it is it's using tainted memory with
Yeah.
ChatGPT and what's interesting is within Mac OS, it's actually not using it's not using the keychain encryption for storing the authorization tokens. So these are the issues that are coming from this, and people need to be very very careful with using these new browsers. So with that being said, they've done about, I'm trying to look over here. It says they did about 100 in the wild web vulnerabilities and phishing attacks. Edge was able to stop 53% of them, followed by Google, which was 47. DA was 46. In contrast, Perplexity's Comet and ChatGPT's Atlas only stopped 7% and 5.8% of malicious web pages. So so you need to continue using Google Chrome. Use Google Chrome.
Pretty staggering, or at least a derivative of it.
I mean, even Edge was 53%. Okay,
Oh
Edge.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I think that really it's the nail on the head with it, because
yeah.
thing is I also think about how this Atlas is specifically on Mac devices, and we all know that the Mac users are not what we would call knowledgeable about the personal computing side of things.
I would be careful with that. I worked with a lot. Well, we were a Mac shop in my previous organization.
But we'll understand. Even so, the majority of people who purchase Macs do so for the simplicity that Mac offers, or at least they tout. It's in their marketing material.
Sure.
So you have a lot of people who are not familiar. So
Yep.
I would say that what you're talking about are the exceptions to the rule.
Yeah, a lot of them prefer the Macs for the additional security on that aspect. I mean, but you're right though. I mean, I know you're talking about the mocha frappuccino and the spice latte.
Sure.
I understand.
But even those, like, the thing
Yep.
is like, yes, I worked for, and on the creative side, a lot of people love to use Macs
Sure.
as if they were still the Macs from the 90s, and they're not,
Right.
But because that's how far back the whole idea that Mac is best for creative work, that's where that came from, and it has not been true since, I don't know, Macs all went to the Pentium processors. So Intel's processors.
So
But it's just fascinating. But my point in bringing that up is that they're not going to be as prepared, for the exploit. They're going to wonder what's going on, and they may even ignore it. That's the problem.
yeah, I'm not going to go too deep into the other ones, but there's quite a few where they're manipulating headers and so forth, where that if they're building sites that essentially, let's just say that you have a website that has good information about someone, but if there is a AI crawler directly into it with the manipulation of headers, they're able to inject data information that's misleading. So, for example, the website's about someone and how great they are and so forth, but then if an AI crawler hits, it's the complete opposite. It's polar opposite, something really negative about them. So there's a lot of things like that, and you're going to see that being utilized by a lot of countries, a lot of countries that are trying to do malicious things against the United States, vice versa, and so forth. Not to say that we're only victims. We're not the only victims, but we'll leave it at that. But I have put 2 links in. So for those of you that are going to be listening to this through audio, so one is through the Hacker News, which is a new ChatGPT Atlas browser exploit. Lets attackers plant persistent hidden commands. And the other one is from the bleepingcomputer.com, which is spoofed AI sidebars can trick Atlas and Comet users into dangerous actions. And most people don't realize, but prior to Search Atlas, Perplexities had a browser that came out, I believe in July, but July of this year, which is actually called Perplexities Comet browser. And so people were starting to use that in July. And then, of course, OpenAI is extremely popular. So when Search Atlas came out, it was like the, best thing since sliced bread. So for those of you that are interested, yeah, Open Atlas, Search Atlas, they have theirs, but there's also Comet that you can take a look at too. So see, Joe, we went from talking about how AI is so great and everyone should be using it to the dark security issue. So this leads into the adoption process. And in the United States, I've been reading a couple of articles, and we can talk about this more later on, but a lot of the articles are showing that, America's gung-ho, and there's very little in terms of guardrails that are being put in to the adoption process of AI tools, while the European countries have actually really clamped down, and they're making it more, they're defining their guardrails, and they're making it where there's a need for checks and balances and really certain guardrails to be put into place for adoption of these tools. So, and I agree with that. I do think there needs to be some adoption tools, for people to really figure out what should be used and what should not be used. So it's interesting to see where this goes. And now we also talked about the big, beautiful bill where they're saying that the federal government's saying that the states are the ones that are going to be doing the legislation process, the laws, right?
Yeah.
Building out rules and so forth. So it's going to be interesting.
They should. They 110% should, because as it is right now under federal law, you're looking at not being able to protect yourself against malicious artificial intelligent things, that have to do with those companies. We cannot stimulate the growth of the AI companies is the law of the land now. So the states should come forward and try to do as much as they can to protect their constituents and make sure that the people living inside their borders are okay, versus the the growth of AI. And look, guys, we're not against the growth of AI here either. We just would love for it not to be used for nefarious purposes. It's just like any other tool. It can be used for good or ill.
Well, you remember whenever the whole meta thing came out with the data and where the data was being utilized, and it went to Congress and they had to testify and everything else. Yeah. I'm we're going to see the same thing with these companies. It's going to be on Congress. It's going to be on the Hill, and we're going to maybe we'll get some more clips of them asking stupid questions, kind of like they did with Meta.
Well, yeah, they're good at that. Then again, they're not exactly the best people to be asking those questions anyway. But I will leave that for a different conversation. I think where we're at with it, guys, is and it's half. We use these podcasts to really kind of bring awareness to what's going on in the industries and what's new and what's great. For us in our adoption of AI, we've obviously jumped in, not head first but feet first into artificial intelligence, and we've ingrained it in a lot of our processes and systems. And so you might have noticed that there's a large uptick in some of the emails that we've been sending out, social media that we've been producing, and a lot of that's still us pushing the buttons and making sure that it's a-okay and good to go. But we're being assisted by AI so that we can definitely do more. That's the important thing. And I want everybody to remember that we're not, we're giving out advice based off of not just our experience from the past, but also our experience now with artificial intelligence. And when I say feet first instead of head first, it's because we're not goo goo gaga for AI and trying to throw everything we can in it into the AI realm, because we firmly believe that we're a human centric company. We believe that you need AI to help the human do things. We don't need it to replace or do things in lieu of humans doing things. That being said, there's a lot of repetitive tasks out there that people used to have to do for themselves, and we're going to use AI to fix those issues, to stop that from having to be done, so people can move forward doing things that actually make more of a difference in their companies than just, hey, I got to do this thing 50 times a week. If I remove that thing that you do 50 times a week, you're probably going to do a whole heck of a lot more things than that thing that you were doing. And I think that's where a lot of people are not seeing the big picture, Sean, is automation replaces it frees up your time more, and it doesn't replace people, because honestly, look, remember, Sean, when back in the day you had people whose sole job it was in the assembly line was to push a freaking button. That was it. That was their whole job in an assembly line in a plant. It got replaced with machines. Of course it did. It was one button. Was that a fulfilling job for that person? Did that person enjoy doing that job? Did that person want to keep doing that job? Probably because it was super simple and it paid them money. Yeah, that's one way to take it. But was it fulfilling to them to do that job? Were they becoming better over time?
If it was mechanical, yes. Click.
Well, it's just because that's all you're doing is that.
Right. Right.
You're not getting better at what you do. You're already really good at doing that. It's I mean, you may have developed something to help you do the thing, right? Like you probably if you're just pushing a button all the time, maybe you found a way to gamify it, right? But my point in saying that is that job was worth being replaced with something else to free somebody up to go do something else. And I know a lot of people initial impact of losing that kind of a job is terrible for people who are in that position. I totally understand that. But speaking from somebody who started in when I was in high school, and I said, hey, I want to be a video editor. I looked up how much video editors made. And back in 1996, I believe, 98, sorry, back in 1998, video editors made $80,000 a year on average. I'm sure people are going, doing that right now.
It was really good. It was a lot of money.
No, it was great for
80,000 for 90. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was great. So that's why I was like, absolutely, I'm going to make more than my father starting. So
159,000, by the way. That's worth today's equivalent is 159,000.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So So I absolutely wanted to do that. So I went to school. I didn't go to school for that, but I graduated high school and I started community college. Blah, blah. Years later, 2007, I graduated, had a dual major, and I went in. I said, all right, let's go. I looked up how much I was going to be making, and it was $35,000 a year. And what had happened was they took the process of that was at the time in 98, tape to tape editing, which is a very grueling, and sometimes you even had to take a magnetic knife and cut the film and patch things in. It's a grueling process, very skill oriented. And now it was all digital, all of it. And so it became a much easier thing to do. More people could do it, and less. Well, I was still skill oriented, just different kind of skill, and it wasn't as appreciated as it could be. But it was a heck of a lot less time consuming.
Right.
So therefore, it required less money. Now, I was hit with having to I could not use the skills that I had been taught fully anyway, with tape to tape. Now I was doing digital. Fortunately, that's what I was wanting to learn because I was in on the initial part of that process. I had knew about nonlinear editors at the time, like Sony. The time it was something Vegas Pro and a few other in Premiere, but so I was able to transition. But the point is like, yeah, I understand what it's like not being able to push the button anymore. Okay, so. But I also know that because I don't have to do that anymore, I was able to transition very quickly to a new, much more efficient and rewarding position that got paid less, unfortunately, but I found a way to make it work in my favor by being more valuable, yada, yada. I won't go down my whole history, but the point is yeah, it sucks to have to be in the receiving end of that. But where, that one point of failure hit, I was able to move forward and do something that was very rewarding. That basically I was able to develop into something even better by not having to be stuck in that dying profession,
Right.
which at that time was reel to reel editing. No one who does that now. Who? Nobody. Nobody
You're right.
does that now.
You're right. Well, I know we're getting close to the intro, and I had something that was on my mind, and I know that a lot of people have that on their mind is October 31st. What do we got? Halloween.
Right.
And I went online because I was very interested in seeing if there were any AI costumes. And yes, Joe, someone has made their costume as the ChatGPT prompt. Perfect. 2025 for you, man. So people are dressed up as ChatGPT.
I was watching several people run around, by the way, in a Halloween. What was it? Some Halloween. It was a convention somewhere like that. But I saw some people wearing dressed up in Halloween gear. Somebody was running around in it's a job application, and everybody was screaming as they ran up. Like,
that's awesome.
God, you know.
That's actually good. Job application. You're right. Oh, yeah. My scary costume application for employment. And then someone, boo, did I scare you? I made job application. But that's funny.
And I do happen to love the I don't normally like it when people dress up their animals per se in outfits and stuff like that. It's kind of cringe to me. But I will tell you that I do appreciate the ones where it's like a little person running around like with a knife or something like that, and like the Chucky outfit and stuff like that on a dog. It's hilarious.
For a dog?
Yeah.
Chucky costume. I gotta see.
I'll see if I can pull it.
Oh, I found it. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you go. They're running around. I mean, this is a great one. I'll try and share this. Let me grab this. Pull it over here.
Yes.
Just running around.
Poor dogs. That's funny. That is funny.
It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's stuff like that. That makes me laugh. There's others. Well, anyway, guys, that's pretty much it for today. I guess what we're looking forward to in the near future is also, don't forget, we are working on our new workshop. It is going to be, just fantastic and great. It was part two of our original content that we had put out. We're going to be going way. This second part two is a little less about the not generic, I guess the general idea and theory behind AI, and it's a lot more about just what you can actually do with it, and really showing some excellent tools that utilize it in a very great way. Like we go in on it. So we're going to be doing that, and then feel free to. The tickets did drop for open for sale on this Monday actually. So feel free to go check that out. That'd be great if I actually put a link in here so people can go to it.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of new things that StreamYard's now providing. So it's gonna be cool what comes out of this later on.
Absolutely. And again, we're also going to be going further. We're not stopping our workshops anytime soon. There's more in the plans besides this part two, but I definitely would recommend you guys start looking at some of these workshops. The sooner you can get in, the better. We're also have made plans because of demand. We're going to be putting up our old workshops as well, and look forward to that. It's going to be great for us to be able to showcase those old ones so people can stay current and up to date, because one of the things we're realizing about our workshops is that they should be cumulative. People being able to see what came before, so that we're not apologies, I'm trying to find my landing page so I can make sure I get this going for people. Found it. Great. So you can feel free, go to the link below that I'm throwing in, and that'll take you directly to the page that we can go to purchase a ticket for our upcoming workshop, which is going to be on November the 10th at 2 p.m. It's $99 for a ticket. Get to have the entire event, and more importantly, it will be on demand, available to you later as well. Now we may not have it on demand for longer than a year, so do keep that in mind. But it is downloadable if I'm not mistaken. And either way, we are going to be re-uploading these to, I believe what we're settling on is Vimeo at this point, and it will be purchasable on demand there forever. So we'll see how that goes. We may even, if it's possible, we may even actually make it to the people who did attend to our initial presentation will get access to the Vimeo content right away as well, if they allow us to do that, which would be great. Either way, that's all I've got for housekeeping items, guys. Sean, any last thoughts?
No, that's it. I would say, look, everything that we've talked about here is hopefully just providing awareness and letting you guys know that, yes, Joe and I are both towards artificial intelligence, but we do strongly believe that you need to move in with an open mind, but at the same time, be cautious with what tools you use and what you share on these tools. That's my 2 cents, Joe.
Perfect. I totally agree. And guys, remember, don't be scared of adopting it, but don't be crazy in adopting it either. We'll talk later, guys. Have a wonderful rest of the week. We'll see you next.